Thank you to all the chairs and speakers. It's been an exceptional and thoughtful and forward set of discussions. I promise to be really brief because I know I'm between you and whatever happens afterwards. But I do owe some of you probably a little bit of a background on EBRD, and it's relevant for what I'm about to say. For those of you who don't know us, the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, the name which is very much like the Holy Roman Empire in the sense that these things actually are exactly what we are. We were set up in 1991 at the end of the Cold War. And the main idea of the institution was to help countries that had been subject to both the central planning of communism, but also the incredible difficult destruction that they faced in their ecological systems, to transition to more market-oriented economies and more democratic economies, but also, interestingly, to transition to better environmental outcomes and more sustainable outcomes. Why is that important? Not just because we're here together, but actually because as an institution that is like other multilateral development banks, that is a regional development bank, it is actually the only institution, only multilateral development bank that was set up with a sustainability mandate built into the treaty, which is, back to North American leaders, something I refer to often when I'm in Washington, when I'm talking to people about whether these institutions are involved in mission creep. Not at all. This is actually built directly into our mission. And in particular, we refer to this as the transition. We're more of a transition bank than a development bank, in the process of working towards that type of transition. But other transitions are really important right now, ones which we've been talking about, and you hear that word pop up a few times in what I'm about to say. But most of all, three themes stand out to me as we conclude this. The first is that law and governance are now the delivery system of climate nature. Across both roundtables, we heard a consistent message, which is that global commitments made COP30 and the IUCN World Conservation Congress only matter to the extent that they're translated into effective national laws, regulatory frameworks, institutional mandates, and contractual arrangements. Put it differently, implementation, not ambition, is the defining challenge of this next phase. For the EBRD, this is really central to the mandate that I was telling you. Under our new Sustainable Capital Framework, or SCF, sustainability is no longer a thematic, but it's a core organizing principle of how we assess risk, how we structure transactions, and how we mobilize capital for the purposes that Marie-Claire mentioned. This SCF explicitly recognizes that legal certainty, regulatory credibility, and governance quality are prerequisites for sustainable investment, whether this is in climate mitigation, adaptation, or nature-positive outcomes. The second point is integration across climate, nature, and development law is not really optional anymore. The clear message from today is the need to break down these silos between climate law and biodiversity law, between environmental objectives and financial regulation, between public and private legal instruments. This is precisely the logic of the EBRD's green economy, wait for it, transition strategy for 2030, which moves us decisively beyond mitigation alone and anchors our work in systemic transition, integrating climate, nature, resilience into economic decision making. So now, for those of you who are looking for who are following the leitmotif, not really looking for the subtext, the subtext is our transition is not just about transitioning these economies to fully functioning market economies and also democracies. It's also about helping them transition away from fossil fuels and towards a more sustainable energy future. That requires legal frameworks that align with the NDCs, biodiversity targets, water governance, transition planning, there it is again, and financial regulation, so that markets receive coherent signals and necessary capital flows follow. So from a legal perspective, what does this mean? Greater attention to transition planning, there it is, requirements for their enforceability, nature-related governance and disclosure, coherent treatment and climate and biodiversity risks and financial regulation, and rights-based approaches, including for the protection of Indigenous and local communities. EBRD will have two other strategies coming up to go along with the GET. Economic governance, which is critical to a well-functioning economy and something that we're experts at, and gender economy and human capital. Human capital is really a central enabler of an effective, sustainable transition. Discussions on biodiversity and Indigenous rights highlight that inclusion is not optional. And finally, third, what about lawyers? Lawyers have a crucial, not peripheral role in closing the ambition gap. One of the most encouraging aspects of the dialogue today and other dialogues that we've done together had together is the recognition that lawyers are not just interpreters of rules, but we're actually the architects of the solutions. Legal practitioners, academics, civil society lawyers, we're shaping how global norms are operationalized. And we're doing that through legislation, through regulatory design, through contracts, safeguards, through conflict and resolution and accountability mechanisms, just to name a few. For MDBs, multilateral development banks like the EBRD, the role of law is basically threefold every day. Where obviously it's as an enabler of our investment, that is by reducing the uncertainty and aligning the incentives. But second, it's as a risk management. We ensure integrity, safeguards, and resilience. And third, it's as a driver of, there's that word again, transition, embedding climate and nature considerations into governance and decision making at great scale. Our lawyers at the EBRD work directly on projects that enable the green transition on the ground. And in particular, our legal transition team, and America referred to Bessie and her team, they are great leaders in our legal transition team. They play a pivotal role by supporting alignment with international standards. They advise on drafting climate governance laws, disclosure regimes, sustainable finance, regulations, and green taxonomies. And they build legal capacity for a just transition, including through law reform and the protection of stakeholder rights. So looking ahead to COP17 and COP30, the priority is not more principles, but rather greater coherence, usability, and enforceability of existing ones. This is where partnerships between MDBs like us, legal professionals, academia, civil society, Indigenous communities, they become indispensable. A couple closing thoughts. I'll close with this reflection. In a period of rapid environmental change and the geopolitical uncertainty that Marcus was referring to, law is possibly the most powerful tool we have to build trust, mobilize capital for change, and protect the public interest. When used well, it does not slow transition, it rather makes it possible. EBRD looks forward to continuing this collaboration and to working with many of you to turn global commitments into durable frameworks and real-world impact.